Hello, everyone, and welcome to Two Mommy Podcast, where touched out meets outnumbered. I'm your host, Ashley, and this is our first episode. I cannot believe that I've actually decided to do this. I've been nervous about it for weeks since I announced that it was coming, but I'm excited and I'm hopeful for the kinds of things that will come from this podcast. I'm hoping that we'll be able to help a lot of moms and alleviate a little bit of stress and just kind of have a place to be us, minus our kids, but plus our kids, because they're always a part of us. So I wanted to start this podcast because I have a wonderful story to tell about my fertility journey. So that is where we're going to start. Have you ever been in an unsure place, kind of like where nothing really makes sense at all, and you kind of just are stuck between what you know in your mind and what you know in your heart and what you know in your spirit? I feel like I've been there so many times, and I feel like even before I started this journey, I've kind of just found myself in this place, but never really knowing how to move from what I know in my mind to what I know in my heart. So I've always been a church girl. I'm 33 years old, I'm married, and I'm a mother of two now. But before all of that, I was always in church, constantly in church, even when I went to college. Now, when I went to college, our church would give us free meals free meals when you come to church. We would always go to Golden Corral after church and eat. But I was always at church. I was a church girl. And I would party Saturday night in school and then go to church the next morning. And I would like to say that I've always had a relationship with God. He's always been the head of my life. Adjacent. And the reason I say adjacent is because you can't really have two heads. I've got control issues. And so a lot of times I would say, oh yeah, I love God. He's the head of my life. But in my heart, I always wanted to be in control of what happens to me next and what happens in my life next. And so it was always present, but it was always superficial. And so I met my husband at the end of 2012. We've been together for 10 years and married for 8. We got married in 2015. And our first year of marriage was filled with pissed off moments and super silly arguments about nothing. Like when we go back and look at what we used to argue about, it was just so incredibly silly that we kind of just reflect on it and laugh. But we've always had such a deep love for each other, and it's always been pretty strong, even through our young love and our silliness of our first years of marriage. We wanted kids, and I always had a plan for my life. I wanted to go to school, I wanted to get married, and then I wanted to have kids. And that was going to be my life. My husband and my kids was always going to be my life. I've wanted to have this since I was young. I wanted to have kids by the age of 28. I got married pretty young at 24. And so it seemed like things were really going to be on track for me. You know, went to college, I met a man, I married him, and next it was time for kids. You guys know the nursery rhyme. I can't think of it right now. Mom brain. But you know the nursery rhyme that says, first get married and then you have a baby in a baby carriage. Yeah, I wanted all of that. That was the life that I wanted to live. And so for the first couple of years of my marriage, I spent a lot of time with my friends because my husband has worked 2 jobs for a very long time. He's worked 2 jobs since we were engaged, and it's been pretty consistently 2 jobs. Even if he switched jobs, it was always going to be 2 jobs and not just 1. And so I was lonely during that time. And I used to spend a lot of time with my friends, kind of like as a cure to deal with my loneliness. And me and my husband were two ships passing in the night. And so it felt like we were roommates who, got busy. And so we were always passing each other. We were always just moving around differently. And it kind of took a little bit of a toll in our marriage. I feel like we went through some roughness because of it. And so when we decided to start trying to have a baby, which was kind of like November of 2017, we were in a pretty good place with each other because, like I've said, our love was always strong. But I'm not sure if we were ready. But in our hearts and our minds, we were ready to go ahead and try. And I didn't understand fertility at all because everybody in my life that I am friends with or that's part of my family, I don't know anyone who got pregnant by accident. No, everybody got pregnant by accident. I don't know anyone who got pregnant on purpose. So I just thought, you get busy and you make a baby. Like, that's just the way that it worked. I didn't necessarily understand about the egg and ovulation and fertilizing and all of those things. We learned about it in school, of course, but it's not something that I just super stored because I didn't think I had to. I just knew that once I started trying, I was going to be able to have a baby. That's just it. I was going to be able to get pregnant. And so I remember going to church in 2017, probably around the end, like I said. And I remembered wanting something more. I remembered not wanting to feel so lonely. So I prayed. And God told me super clearly to try him at his word. But I was very, very scared to do that because I've always wanted to have a sense of control over my life. It's always a thing that I've wanted to do. And so I was definitely reluctant to try because I had control and trust issues. And I really enjoyed the concept of trusting God, but I don't know that I really wanted to be part of the execution. And that is something that when I think about it now, for me, it feels like, okay, girl, really? You really are putting your trust in yourself instead of trusting God? And I did. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely did. But it's not because I didn't want to. It was because I was scared. Most people get scared. I mean, come on. You can't see God. You feel him. But I just was so nervous to put my trust into someone that I could not see. And like I said, I like the concept, but I didn't really understand how to execute. And so I started to spend more time at church in 2018. And I started volunteering at my church. I started to spend more time with God. I was trying to be more present in all areas. I was trying to be a better wife, a better daughter, a better sister, just better all around. And I started tithing more. And I kind of learned the art of consistency because that's just a thing about tithing. It helps you become consistent to God. And that was something that an area that I definitely needed some assistance in because I wasn't consistent with much of anything except for really my marriage. And so at the end of 2018, we were still kind of childless, but we were still trying and still practicing, as we like to call it. And I was starting to feel really, really connected with my church. But I really, really wanted to have a baby because I still felt so lonely. And I just knew that having a child was going to cure the loneliness that I felt from not having my husband here all the time. Which is not true. You don't have kids to cure loneliness. And so at the time, I just kind of felt like if I had a baby, I'd have something else to pay attention to. And it would help me kind of not really think about all of the other stuff that's going on kind of in my mind or that's happening around me. I've always found that I like distraction from what's going on. Not so much now. Now I am a person who really likes to kind of deal with issues and deal with what's happening. But at that time, I loved to be distracted. Distraction was a wonderful thing because as long as I stayed in an area of distraction, I didn't have to deal. And who wants to deal? Not me. Well, at that time, I didn't. And so, I was really starting to feel connected with my church in 2018. And so at the end of that year, I decided to apply for a job at my church as their admin. And I got the job, FYI, but it's been one of the greatest blessings in my life because my church is where I formed my village. And my village are the people that are helping me raise my kids. And they are everything to me. And I'll talk probably a lot more about them because they are a pretty consistent part of my everyday, part of my life, part of my just being. The only time we really don't talk is when we're all on vacation. And they're just a part of the fabric of me right now. And that's when I started to form that village. So at the end of the year, I find out that I get the job. And then 2019 comes and I start my job at my church. And at this point, we've been actively trying for a baby consistently. And we kind of was like, okay, well, where's the baby? Like, if we're trying for a baby and we're not having one, where is the baby? And I started to get a little bit nervous. I started to really wonder what was going on. And so my pastor's wife, her name is Tara. I'll call her Falula. Don't ask why. But her name is Tara. And, we would talk about me wanting to have a child. And we started to kind of build a relationship once I became my pastor's admin. I keep all of his appointments and things like that. And so I always wanted us to have a cool relationship, but we have ended up becoming super, super close. And so she asked me during that time, I went to lunch with her and I asked her if, God punishes us for things. And that wasn't really the phrasing of my question, but I was trying to get an answer because I was trying to figure out why wasn't I able to have a baby? Was it because I had done wrong? Was it because me and my husband lived together? Was it because we fornicated? Was it because of something else I may have done years and years ago? And she told me that while we do have to pay for our consequences, God is not the type of God to withhold something like that from you as a punishment. And, at that lunch, I started to cry because then I'm just like, well, what is going on? So my husband, he goes and he gets some tests ran to see, what's going on with him. Maybe his sperm count is low. Maybe something is going on in his body. And he comes back fine. So I'm sitting there like, wait a minute. It's me? Like, I'm the issue? And I was shocked. And so Tara is like, okay, well, have you gone to the doctor? Have you talked to your doctor? And I'm like, no. I don't like doctors. I hate going to the doctor. And at that time, I hadn't been to the doctor in a very long time. So I had to just go ahead and establish a new primary care doctor and a new gynecologist. And so I went to my primary care doctor and got some blood work done. Everything was fine. And then I went to my OBGYN to, get some tests done too. And I told them my desire to have a baby. I saw a midwife first. Her name is Dr. Navarro. And, she says, well, a good place for you to start is by losing weight. And in my head, I was just like, okay, I guess I can do that. I've never really had a desire to attempt or try. I was pretty comfortable with who I was. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you can see that I'm a plus size girl. And so I said, okay, maybe that's the place to start. But I didn't start there. I kind of just said, okay, I'll start, and did it. So by the time my follow-up came around, she's just like, listen, are you really ready to have a baby? Because you're not doing the things that we talked about. You're not trying to actively lose weight. Like you're kind of just doing nothing. And it hurt. It hurt to hear her say that, but she was right. I kind of had to participate. And this is the first time in my life that I think I've had to participate so greatly. And so I started going to the gym. I had lost 10 pounds. And so by my next appointment, she was pleased. And the thing was that she wanted to pass me off to a gynecologist. And I was ready for that. And at that appointment, she said, it seems like you're pretty consistently losing weight now, so let's go ahead and pass you off. Because you have... That's me doing drum roll on my thighs. PCOS. And so, for those of you who are not familiar with PCOS, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it's like a thing with insulin and then a thing with your hormones and testosterone. Like it's just a bunch of stuff that pretty much boils down to you have irregular periods, they're not consistent, and there's a good chance that your fertility is suffering from it, which mine was. I wasn't able to get pregnant because of it. And so she passes me off to Dr. Wilson, and Dr. Wilson started my fertility journey. But on the day that I got diagnosed, it was around my birthday. And I got so sad. I was so sad on my birthday. I cried my whole birthday. It was just a pretty terrible birthday. But I talked to Tara. She was actually on her way back from a trip where my pastor had to go preach. And she said, okay, so what are we going to do? And that was kind of my first time ever hearing a we. And so I said, well, my doctor says that I have to lose weight. And she said, okay, well, we're going to go to the gym. And to be able to have that support really meant a lot. And she, which I didn't know at that time, was going to play a huge role in me being able to kind of keep my mind on track and keep myself on track to have this child. I didn't know that she was going to play the role that she did, but I'm super grateful for it. And so I think that that's a good place for us to stop. So come back next week where we're going to continue the discussion about my fertility journey. I really hope that this will help someone who's suffering from PCOS or who's trying to actively have a child. It's a place where faith meets works. That's what it is. It's transformative faith. And so we're going to talk about that next week. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I hope that you'll come back next week. Bye-bye.